Okay, another Real You adventure hike here. I got some better traction shoes, so it won't be so slippy. Cars driving by. But yeah, here we are. More walking and talking. So for some reason, my phone will shut off all of a sudden. It's kind of annoying, so I don't know why it does that. But every time it gets a little better. I got some feedback that the camera's a little choppy, so I'm gonna figure out how to stabilize that, maybe through some editing, whatever. But yeah, hiking here at Hag Lake once again. Beautiful spot to be stuck at, I would say. Can't complain too much. But yeah, here we go. Been thinking about the power of the mind and how it's a lousy master, but can be an amazing servant, and trying to navigate my mind is definitely a challenge during this time, I'm sure, for a lot of us. But challenge accepted. I've heard that it's good to realize that we are not our thoughts. I think of our thoughts as constantly happening. I think it's 300 to 1,000 words per minute, we think. So they're always going. And think of it like if you ever been to one of those sushi bars where the sushi meals are going around the conveyor belt. So if each one of those represented a thought, you can have the choice to kind of sit back and observe them going by. But then when you take one off and eat it, it's similar to believing that thought as real. So I think once we believe a thought to be real, then it becomes part of us. So there we have choice in that. Is this a toxic thought that I want to believe, or is this a healthy thought that I want to believe? And so I think that's a good way to kind of navigate our thinking patterns in a beneficial way. And I definitely have had times where I just go unconscious into my thinking, and like everything that's coming in, I either believe is real or not. And if it's toxic thinking, then I'm just reacting to that. And if it's positive thinking, then I'm just reacting, but I've lost control. And so I think it's good to have those daily morning times to kind of put your mind in check and really start observing your thoughts for the day, as opposed to reacting from your thoughts from the day. At least that's been helping me. And been also really into Richard Rohr, and he talks about the real self versus the false self. And false self is very associated with ego, and then our real self, when we're in that space of who we really are, find our power. He said something interesting, that part of us can't be offended. Like if you're rocking your real self, it's impossible for you to be offended. But if you're an ego self, your ego is very fragile. And so if you're starting to notice that you're getting offended or defensive, it's like, oh, you're probably identifying yourself with your ego. And that's just a good red flag, or something to pay attention to be like, oh, I'm living in my ego. And then you can step out of it and get back into your real self, which is always there, he says too. So you can there's more grace and forgiveness for that. Like, oh, I was just living in my ego in that time. That's why it was so turbulent. But I'm really fascinated by this real self that he's talking about. Like, who is that person really in myself and in other people? And if it is something that can't be offended, like that sounds, or has very low level fear, that sounds like a very worthwhile thing to explore and figure out and try to be more present with. Yeah, that's exciting. So that's the thought. Things I'm pondering. It's pretty wet right now. It's supposed to rain all week. I got these shoes that apparently don't slip on ice, and they also have like a steel toe, and they're also super lightweight and thin. And I'm like, they're only $25 on Amazon. So I'm like, sold. They're working out pretty good. They're not waterproof, but low slip factor, so that's nice. I've also been curious about depression. Like, what is depression? What causes it? How do we navigate that? Why does it exist? Again, that might be something that's telling us there's a deeper truth we need to be looking for. So yeah, there's different levels of depression, obviously. Everyone's got on their own journey with it. It seems like we all want the same thing. We all want more consistent joy and authentic love, happiness in our life. I think we all want that. I think we can find it in ways that aren't real, like through quick gratification, those dopamine fixes that are really fast, get you on a high, so to speak, but don't last very long. I'm guilty of the dopamine trap. Definitely can happen in relationships and bad habits and whatever. And so finding ways to find something more meaningful, I think, is healthy. What I do like about this is I think it's sparked a lot of creativity in people really asking themselves, what are some creative outlets that I can do? And then I think that we want to keep doing once, I don't think things are ever going to be as they were, but things will definitely be a little more structured after the peak of the virus. My hope is that I can continue doing daily creative activities along with my other work, and really don't lose how valuable that is. I hope that's something that sticks with all of us, because we can zombie out into different aspects of life for sure. It's getting steep here. It's like, I feel like I should have a dog with me. I always thought it'd be fun to have a pet raccoon too. That would be crazy. People do it though. So my hope too is to find a way to be on a video chat with somebody, and then as I'm walking, they're on the phone with me, and then we can record our conversation as I'm hiking here and maybe they're hiking somewhere else. I think that would be a cool next step with this Real You Adventure YouTube podcast. Something that's been helping me is just trying to lean into that we live in a universe that's for us, not against us, even though it might not seem that way at times. But having that big picture look, and really, I think just reflecting on my life honestly, I'm the one who's messed things up. Self-sabotage. Yeah, I'm my worst enemy, right? Like, I've had so many great things come into my life, and my only regret is that I wasn't aware enough to appreciate and enjoy those things. So I think moving forward, really practicing participating with my life and really appreciating the gifts that are being given daily. This thing called process theology talks about every 12th of a second we're given the best choice that we can make based on our past choices and the world's choices. Like, there's this like higher probability quantum physics thing where every 12th of a second it's continually in motion and dynamic and in process, and we can choose to be participating with that and be in flow with that at any point. Like right now it's happening so quick, and so obviously we tap out of it at times, but it's still going and we can tap into it at any time. Some people call it the flow or the zone, and what I like about it is it's always there, it's always available, and it's up to us to get in stride with it as opposed to, it's me who's supposed to make my future, it's all on my shoulders. I think it is to a point as far as willing to participate with everything, but I think you can get a little too in your own way or in your own world and try to control everything for some kind of personal dream or goal. But really, and I think those are important, but relaxing into, okay, what's going on all around me and how do I participate with my life and with the lives of others right here and now. And I've found when I'm in that zone, I've had the best experiences. I've created the best friendships, best connections, and I feel like those things have always been a gift in my life, not something that I've forced. I feel like if I try to force something, that's when it goes wrong or toxic or never really pans out how I want it to be, because it's this weird expectation that I created in my head. But if I let things be and flow with it, I find that that's a more realistic way of living, more beneficial way of living. Could be wrong, but I'm trying to make that my aim as much as possible. And even that could get in my way. Trying to get in the flow can get in the way of being in the flow. So again, I think that daily meditative practice to just chill the mind out and be present. Also think this is just a blink in eternity, so there's many more adventures to be had, and it's a slow growth process, so it's good to be nice to ourselves. Learn from our regrets and our mistakes and just keep moving forward. Keep on keeping on. There's that saying, when the pain of staying the same is greater than change, then change will happen. And I can definitely relate to that many times. So whether we like it or not, we're definitely in a universe of growth and progress. And I do think it's a very slow growth, just like things that grow in nature. Usually, for the most part, it's a very intentional, growing at the pace it needs to grow, not too slow, not too fast. Kind of like a caterpillar that builds a cocoon and then turns into a butterfly. If you try to speed that process up, it doesn't work. So just relaxing into our individual growth processes and then enjoying the day. Life is a day's journey, so do it well. Finding out what that is, though, is the trick, right? What does it mean to do a day well? I think it all starts with navigating the mind. Everything seems to start in the mind and heart. I think Richard Rohr and Eckhart Tolle talk about that 90% or more of our thinking every day is repetitive or negative, not beneficial, if we just let it do what it does. So it's like, okay, got an option here. Let's focus in on how we want to use our mind. What healthy things do we want it to feed on that's going to contribute to the health and expansion of our heart, our soul, spirit, whatever. Then it's like we're empowered then to make that choice for ourselves. With help, we need community for sure, which is ironic at this time. But this is the way I'm connecting with people and doing some Zoom calls. Bit of a hill here. Anyway, it's weird. I feel like I'm a little subconscious pressure to say stuff. I want it to be genuine, don't want it to be contrived. My hope with this too is that people that can't get outside can maybe have a virtual hike with me, kind of at least get somewhat of their nature fix. Coming up on a field here. Well, not for a while. Boring. This is getting boring. Not really. Maybe for some people. A lot of times it's like we always want there to be talking, somebody talking, or we should be talking. We have a hard time just not. I think a big picture thought that helps me is that we're all family, everybody in the world, and seeing everybody as a brother or sister, I think is a good ideal to have. I have a hard time with that, though. I can feel disconnected. I've always felt a little bit outside looking in. I think, sure, we can all relate to that. But we do get those moments where it's like, oh man, feeling part of this. I do think that may be the blessing through all this, is a deeper level of connection with nature and with people. There's that scene at the end of Into the Wild. I don't know if you guys seen that movie with the young man who decides to go live in Alaska, and it's his journey to get there, and then he ends up there. And through the whole process, he accidentally eats some poisonous plant or seeds that he mistook for a different kind of seed that looked very similar to one that he could eat. And he ends up poisoning himself to death, unfortunately. But one of the last things he writes in his journal is, happiness isn't real unless it's shared. And I thought that was really profound. He spent so much time trying to isolate himself in Alaska, and then he discovered that he wasn't truly happy unless he was sharing it with others. He probably had a better time on his way there, interacting with people, getting advice about how to do it. But I think that's an important thing to remember, is that our happiness isn't real unless we share it with a person, a family, a group. Having that community is very valuable. And I think we all want it so badly that we do weird things to get it that actually sabotage actual, genuine connection. I've been guilty of that. So I hope that this brings out the simplicity of just experiencing another person for who they are, and not having to try to prove ourselves. Because I think we all really want to experience somebody else for who they really are, and to be experienced for who we really are. And when we put up front, it's really draining. So to be able to put all that aside and just relax into all right, here I am. What's going on? That's a pretty special thing to find. What time are we at? 23? I think we'll do a solid 30. Call it good. Well, I hope if any of you are interested in sharing a journey with me, a hike in nature, a real you adventure, we could do it through the phone. When I figure out that tech, just hit me up and we'll set up a time to do it and just have a genuine conversation, see where it goes. No topic, no point. I guess the point is just to be yourself and see what bubbles up, and just to share that experience is the intention. I think it's a good way to get out of our heads too. Find when you're in a flow with somebody or an in the moment conversation, it's a good way to let the mind take a break from its stinking thinking, its toxic cycles that it does. I think too, it does that too because it wants to keep us alive. I think the brain is wired to take in negative because it's trying to protect us. It's like, okay, what's bad, what's negative, stay away from it. And it's a tool, right, if you see it that way. But it doesn't have to consume you, who you actually are. But with that, you have to put in the work, the effort to master the mind, self-control, all that stuff. I heard the saying, if you can master oneself, you can master a city, meaning just showing how difficult of a challenge that is. But it's a worthwhile one. Yeah. I don't know. I'm just a dude. I'm just another human here, walking this earth with you all, trying to figure it out. It can be a very confusing place. Amazing place too. But yeah, here we are. Nonetheless. Ooh, that's pretty. Oh, let's see if I can hit the field. I want you guys to see the lake. Hold on. Going to the lake. It's almost here. The water level is really high right now. Probably because a lot of factories and stuff, I don't know, aren't really using it as much. Just the communities aren't using as much. Woo! Yeah, these shoes work really well. Sorry, I forgot the name of them if you're interested in buying them. Maybe just look up no slip shoes. Steel toe, no slip shoes. All right, here's the lake. So pretty. Yeah, it was the last podcast I was talking with Izzy, my roommate, and telling her, staring at the water for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then I look at the ground, and the ground would move. It's very cool. All right. Well, I love you all. All right. Peace and love. Bye.